Well, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Filling in the Gaps. But this week, it's just me. That's right, Rich from the heartland state of Ohio, all by himself, not joined by his lovable friend from down in the biggest and baddest state of Texas. Cameron this week had some work and couldn't make it to recording day, so I'm here to do something a little bit different. We're not quite sure what we're calling it yet. It might be like a campaign diary or filling in the gap by himself. That sounds weird, but whatever it is, I'm here to talk to you guys a little bit about what I did in my last session, which revolved a lot around a tournament. Now, giving you guys a little bit of backstory. First off, if this is your first episode of Filling in the Gaps, hello. What a weird episode for you to start on. Normally what we do is every week, me and Cam take two D20s, roll on a table, and determine over the next 45 minutes what we would brainstorm about, whether it's Zombie Candyland or Masquerade Superhero, and we usually try to make it run like a D&D game. What can we do to give you ideas so you can actually play? But this week, I'm going to talk about what I did with my heroes in my session, and hopefully you guys can maybe run with that. This will be a much shorter episode. I know you guys just come for Cameron anyway. I'm just kidding. But hopefully it'll still let you guys spark some ideas about tournaments. Now, I know when I say tournaments, when I say like competitions, in D&D, you guys might think, oh my gosh, I've tried it before, or I've thought about it, and it just turns into a big slugfest. You hit him, he hits you, you hit him, he hits you, over and over and over and over again. I actually took some inspiration for my session from a YouTube channel called The Animated Spellbook. They're on YouTube. The guy's a fantastic animator. It's the reason I first started following him, but he makes a lot of cool videos showing visually how the different spell components and spell classes, and even some fun stories about what he's been doing with his games. It's a lot of fun. Check him out. He's a great guy. But anyway, in my session, I took an idea from him. He said that him and some other players played in a player versus player tournament that was actually a lot of fun because it didn't function like a slugfest. It functioned more like quirky games that made players think about their skills and less about their ability just to hit things. So here's some backstory. In my game, I should say first off that the world is in a very post-apocalyptic state. Everything's kind of got this sense of dread, and everything's got this sense of kind of just being bummed out. The reason is because about 10 years ago, one of my players missed a few attack rolls and accidentally let someone summon Orcus back into the world. And because of what some of my earlier players did, even years before that, there aren't really a lot of gods in the world right now. So Orcus is kind of it. So he's prowling around the world, the Lord of Blood and the Undeath, and zombies are everywhere. Now, I didn't want to make it Walking Dead style because there is still some magic and people can fight back. So they're taking, the session right now is taking place in the town of Ravenswood. Now, Ravenswood has these large stone walls that keep the zombies at bay. To be in Ravenswood is to be safe, but it also means that you have to take your turn watching the wall. With the 4 different organizations that are currently in Ravenswood. The Academy, which is the mages faction. People who want to learn to be mages sign up and learn to practice fireball by shooting at zombies. The Four Fingers, which is your criminal faction. You might learn how to get some sneak attacks in or shoot some bows. The courthouse, which is like your knights and your fighters. The courthouse is also responsible for the people who come into Ravenswood, and also when food's getting low, they're responsible for saying, hey, if you can't do this, you're back outside the wall by yourself. And the last faction, which is Phoenix Rising. Now, Phoenix Rising has kind of a weird name, and that's because it's some of my old retired players. Their adventure company is now kind of just helping the world run. So it's interesting. But the 4 of them and the king of the town came together to celebrate my players killing a dragon. They killed a dragon, a young adult dragon, over some really weird circumstances. They had a bunch of good items and they kind of caught him by surprise. That's a whole other story for another time that involves some really interesting mechanics, but we'll get to that later. But because my players had killed a dragon, they decided to go ahead and to throw a celebration. I mean, if you're going to celebrate something, celebrate killing a dragon, right? I mean, there's zombies everywhere. What else are we going to do? So the first thing that I learned from that YouTube video done by the Animated Spellbook was that when you have a tournament, the first thing is to consider is it's not just the games. It's everything around the games too. My players hadn't had really a good opportunity to sell a lot of the artwork and gems and artifacts that they were getting by going into these dungeons and just traveling around. This was their time. as the tournament started, hundreds of merchants from all over gathered together to not only sell, but to also buy goods. And I told my players items that would normally sell maybe for 50% of their value could sell at the games for 100% of their value. The players just felt like they got so much money all at once and put them in a really good mood right off the start. But along with that too, there's all of the other things going around with that much money and those much goods going on. For instance, the Four Fingers had found out that there were a few different goods that needed extracted. There's a druid in town who went by the name of Stormbeard, and Stormbeard happened to grow some very rare mistletoe in his beard. And if one of the players during a match could get that mistletoe out of his beard, they'd pay handsomely. There was another art connoisseur who knew that there was this old dwarf who was selling a picture that was worth way more than she thought it was, and he wanted to get it, and he would really pay anyone who could get it for him, whether it was by him buying it from the dwarf or through other means. There was another merchant stand who had competition with his competitor, and they were both there, and he figured out a way to frame them to the courthouse to get them kicked out of the walls. It would cost the guys maybe his life and livelihood, but they'd pay for it if someone would do it. All of these different things going around, and NPCs coming back that the players hadn't seen in a while to celebrate my players being awesome, but also to let the players know, hey, this is what's going on. It was a really cool way, and a lot of the players had fun interacting with these NPCs, but also I gave them the opportunity to use this as a recruiting time. I mean, they're competing in the A-level games, but you could also watch some of the minor league games and maybe pick up some students or some people to follow you. Anyway, let's talk about the games themselves, right? That's what you guys are interested in. Let's talk about it. So here are the games I ran during my tournament. Now, like I said, I didn't want it to be a slugfest. I didn't want it to be, I hit that guy with my axe and he hits me with his sword, and we do that for 20 minutes and everyone gets bored. I wanted things to feel fast, to feel like skill events. So I kind of custom tailored some games. For instance, my barbarian / druid always loves to wrestle things. I've been playing with him for 3 years, and he always plays a big boy. So I knew I had to do something with wrestling. Instead of just doing, I punch him, I kick him, I grab him until our HP is down, I made this a little bit different. Every competitor, when they step into the ring, gets a thin wooden board strapped to their front, their back, their arms, and their legs. And I kind of came up with a Greco-Roman wrestling scoring system, but simpler. If you punched or kicked, if you broke a board on an opponent, you got half a point. However, if you were able to somehow get the opponent to break his own board by slamming him into the ground or into the wall, or by a tricky grapple maneuver, you would get a full point. And the first person to 3 points won. And I also included some paper, scissor, rock mechanics, or rock, paper, scissors, for you Neanderthals who say it that way. Sorry, I know I'm weird. But that way, the players could kind of feel like they could choose what they did every round. If you took an aggressive stance, you got a +2 to your attack rolls, but a -2 to your AC. If you took a neutral stance, you got a +1 to both. And if you took a defensive stance, you got a +2 to your AC, but a -2 to your attack roll. So the players would roll at the same time. There was no initiative order, and I just said what happened. Maybe both players hit, but I made an interesting kind of decision last minute, like I normally do when I DM, that what I would do is, if you didn't roll high enough, if you didn't roll either 5 over your opponent's attack or 5 over their DC, whichever it was, then you would get a half a point. So I'd say, cool, you rolled a 24, which would hit, but their AC right now is currently 20. So you only get half a point. How does that happen? Or I'd say, dude, you rolled 10 higher than their AC. Okay, you're going to get a full point. How do you do it? And my player loved being able to explain his WWE style moves as his massive barbarian just wrestled around with this, I almost said Argonian, but I meant to say Dragonborn. It was a lot of fun. Give it a try. Let me know what you think. Now, of course, if you're going to have a big boy, you also have the ranger of the group. So for my ranger, I came up with a paintball style event. So imagine an arena with these large 7-foot tall, 3-foot wide stone columns set up in rows and columns. Every 5 feet, there's another column. And it kind of creates a checkerboard of sorts, with just enough room to maneuver around and to get some cover, but to also try to sneak and find line of sight. At the beginning of the round, 4 archers, or whatever you're shooting, would get into the arena at once. And I had all of the competitors, both the NPCs and players, decide at one time where they were going to move. they would write down on a piece of paper, kind of like playing chess, I'm going to move to A4. I'm going to move to B3, and I'm going to hide behind the pillar like this. And then once we move our pieces, they choose who they want to shoot at. Once again, no initiative order, just where did you move? Did you read the other players correctly? And do you have a line of sight? Now, since I didn't want to be, once again, you shoot till the health is down, I made it kind of like paintball. If you got hit twice by 2 colored arrows, you're done. Every player got 3 arrows, so you really had to make those shots count, especially because the pillars provide cover. If you could see more than half of the player or half of the NPC, they had half cover and would get a +2 to their AC. If they were fully behind the pillar, depending, I would either make a call between them having full cover and not being able to be shot at, or between them having 3/4 cover, giving a +4 to their AC. So it was kind of like ducking behind cover, looking for that perfect shot, and really hoping that somehow someone doesn't get behind you. But this is where things got interesting. I thought that all the NPCs and my player competing would hit their shots more, and they didn't. And very quickly it got to the point where 3 people had no shots and 1 person had 1 shot. So I made another random call and said, okay, we're going to have ammunition respawn, and whoever gets to it first wins. And it was awesome. In that moment, too, I had players. My player asked if he could cast spells, to which, of course, I said, yes, I didn't say you couldn't. And he went ahead and casted Jump. One of my Warforged that was competing burrowed down into the ground to keep himself safe, and another player cast Dimension Door, or actually casted Blink, and disappeared. And it got really tense all at once as everyone's biting their fingers, wondering who's going to get the bullets and who's going to get shot while they go for it. It was a lot of fun. Give it a shot. Tell me what you think. Now, one game we didn't get the chance to play yet was jousting. And I didn't want to do riding on an animal, so I kind of made it work like chicken. Like, you know, chicken, when you went swimming when you were a kid and you stood on somebody's shoulders and tried to push somebody else off their shoulders. Yeah, I made it work like that. But this is D&D, remember? So I pulled back the rules of the tournament even more. This is extreme jousting. You're signing up knowing that you're probably, for sure, going to visit the injury tent after this. You would stand on your teammates or someone else's shoulders, and the last team standing wins. But you could do anything. Because of that, I also gave every team 2 counterspell tokens that you could use whenever you want. And that counterspell token instantly counters a spell. We're not going to get tricky with the rules. It does it, but you can only do that twice. 3 teams enter the arena at once, and the last team standing wins. Now, I know my players, especially since there's a druid, are going to do some interesting transforming stuff, so I did the same. I have 2 Warforged players, or NPCs, that are going to kind of transform into each other and form a giant Warforged. Legal. I have another NPC, remember Stormbeard? He's going to transform into a Trent and have, like, maybe an archer, I'm thinking, sitting on his shoulders and be taking shots with magical arrows that have different effects. It's going to be a lot of fun, it's going to be chaotic, and I hope that it'll give some of my players some chance to burn some spells. But speaking of burning spells, you know what? I'll save that one for last. Let's talk about the well. Now, the well is essentially, imagine a pool about 20 feet by 20 feet in a square, and at the bottom, there's a small cage around a 5-pound weight. Now, I'm thinking maybe 10 competitors come into the pool at once, and when the timer or the round starts, they kind of can linger above the water for as long as they want. They don't have to jump in right away. Now, the point of the game is to get to the surface with this 5-pound weight, but no one knows when the cage is going to open. And once you jump into the water, if you resurface for air without the weight, you're disqualified. Once again, the Warforged, they're competing, and they don't have to breathe underwater. And I know some of my characters and some of my NPCs and some of my players are going to be doing things to break the rules. Well, actually not break the rules. There's very little rules to compete as well. But it'll be interesting and involve a lot of constitution and strength, dexterity, spell casting. It should be interesting. But the main creme de la creme of the game, it was hosted by the Academy, the guys in charge of, once again, people who come in and out. Because they've been watching the gates, they started to collect zombies that were attacking the city for a long period of time and corralled them so that they could have a free-for-all type event. Well, I shouldn't say that, not a free-for-all. Kind of like a gauntlet. I don't know really how best to describe it other than telling you what it is. One person enters the arena at a time, and when the timer starts, all of the gates open and throngs of undead enter. Now, it's not a gauntlet. It's not survive as long as you can. It's do as much damage as you can in 3 rounds of combat and get as high as a score as you can. How many zombies can you kill in 3 rounds? I'm super excited for this game because it's going to give, I think, all of my players a chance just to go off. They don't have to worry about surviving because there'll be people to help them out. They don't have to worry about keeping other players up. They don't have to worry about good footwork. They have to worry about how many zombies can I kill in 3 rounds. I think it'll be a lot of fun. But one thing I actually forgot to mention is the prizes of a tournament. Why are people competing? I wish I would have said this earlier. So once again, in Ravenswood, I mentioned that there's 5 factions, I believe. There's the Golden City, or that's an old faction. It's the Golden League now, which might sound familiar for anybody who's doing the D&D Adventures League. But there's the Golden League, which are kind of like my knights in shining armor. There's the Courthouse, the Mages Academy, or the Academy, the Four Fingers, the Robin Hood Thieves organization, and Phoenix Rising, my old player group. The 5 of them are sponsoring this tournament. Now, the main prize is, of course, gold, and that's being given by the king of the Golden League. But there's 4 other prizes. Now, the grand prize goes to whoever wins the most, because there should be a prize for that. But the other 4 prizes go to whoever the 4 organizations think best represents their persona. For instance, the Four Fingers, the criminal organization, they're giving smaller magic items as a prize to whoever best represents the Hood. Now, the Hood is someone who thinks cleverly, who uses their dexterity, and maybe their stealth, maybe even charisma, and might be a little bit dastardly. The Academy wants to see someone who is a mage, someone who's intelligent, someone who's wise, someone who uses spells cleverly. The Courthouse wants to see a knight, someone who stands strong, who has endurance, and who maybe even follows the rules. And the Phoenix Rising group, my old players, well, what do players like? Big, flashy moves and comebacks. They want to see somebody who can do that. At the end of every game, the winner and the 2 runner-ups get brought before the crowd, and the announcer asks, who did they best represent? And people cheer and chant for really how they saw the characters acting. This meant that you could lose a game, but still be awarded the title of the Hood, and whoever had the most titles for their certain persona got that prize. It made a really interesting mechanic of not only having people win, but winning a certain way, or maybe even losing to get a certain title at the end, because all those different factions offered up a very different prize. Like I said before, the Four Fingers offered up smaller magical items, but the Academy was offering up a Pearl of Power. The Courthouse was offering up nobility in the city for up to 4 people, which also could be worth a lot and be a great bargaining chip for other factions. And the last one, who was it? Oh, Phoenix Rising. They're offering up an old dilapidated watchtower for someone to refix. So the players are scrambling trying to think of how can my character act like a character. I stole a lot from WWE and honestly D&D itself. Your character now has to put on a persona and act a certain way. And the players are loving acting or really leaning into cliches and giving speeches and even having some trash talk before games. It's been a lot of fun. But I hope that through this rambling, you got some idea for maybe how to run your own tournament. It was a lot of fun. I played some like synthwave music during the games to give kind of a deuce like different feel to my games. Just the NPCs that just randomly popped up were a lot of fun. And running a tournament like this off of skills let my players feel like everything happening was important and not just I'm going to hit this person till they're dead. Give it a try. Let me know what you think. And like I said before, this episode was kind of different. I hope you guys got some idea. Like I said, if you're new this week or if you're been around for a while, our job is to give you ideas. So even though this is a different format, I hope it still helped. But here's the big thing. If you guys would like to hear more about my world or any game that me or Cam are running, if you'd like more campaign diary type stuff where I talk more about the flavor of my world, or you just want to hear what's happening and get more ideas like this, let us know. Hop on our Discord, our Reddit, or even leave us a review and say, hey, I like this episode. Do more like that, please. Especially because 5-star reviews really help us out. And if you want to leave a 5-star review and say, Cam, I miss you, Rich isn't as cool as you, frowny face, that'll help us and make Cam feel great. Let's make Cam feel great, guys. But that's all I have. Sorry for being goofy and by myself this week. But If you guys are looking for a way to contact us or maybe build with me a tournament structure on Discord, that'd be great to hear you guys' ideas. You can contact us on Reddit, on Discord, and on Twitter by looking up Filling in the Gaps. Now, on Twitter, that's FITGDND. We abbreviate it, and you can use the hashtag as well. But I hope you guys got some kind of inspiration for something you can do in your games this upcoming week. And as always, I'll see you on the next one. I don't have the audio files for the outro music, so I'll just bump, banana, bump, banana, bump, bump, butch, boom, stabajush, boom, stabajush, don't, stab, bump, stupid. I usually don't listen this far into the music. I'm just gonna start singing quiet.